Friday show. Man, apparently aliens are real. Apparently aliens are real. We're in the 24th day of our government shutdown. Our government and administration is completely open for business, and the Bears are in the playoff race. What bizarre reality have we found ourselves in? Honestly. Honestly, bizarro world. Bizarro world. We're heading into the weekend, shutdown, chugging right along. This government is completely open for business. I called Donald Trump the innovator of the grift in one of the first shows we did here. Completely innovating the grift from the Oval Office. Crony capitalism is what is absolutely hot in the streets right now. And this government is completely open for business. And one of the grifts that I detailed to you on at least 3 different shows compiling this one grift has come full circle. Has fully blossomed. Grift complete. Involving multiple people in multiple countries. The grift is complete. I told you about Trump and World Liberty Financial joining with Steve Witkoff and the Trump family and Witkoff opening this World Liberty Financial. They immediately come out with a meme coin, a stable coin, right? The USD1 stable coin was one of their big features of this brand new venture. The USD1 stablecoin, Witkoff and the Trumps. That's where it all starts. That's where it all started. You've got Sheikh Tanoon. Remember this story? Sheikh Tanoon, out of the UAE, handed $1 trillion of his country's money to make the UAE a technological giant in terms of cybersecurity and AI development. That was his task. This guy has rubbed elbows with the down and dirty, nastiest of the region generals, revolutionaries, imams, emirs, terrorists. He knew them all. He was their top spy. And then he was handed this money. Make it happen. So what did he do? He went to the United States. He said, I want your NVIDIA AI chips. They're the best on the market. I need those. The United States said, no, we can't do that. You're too good of friends with China. You will give them the chip technology. You'll share it with their military. Sorry. We'll give you our second-grade chips, and to do that, you have to lessen the Chinese influence in your country to even get our second-tier chips. Right? To even get our second-tier chips. So Tanoon and Witkoff, they cook up this plan, along with advisors in Tanoon's G42 AI company. Advisors within that company that currently work for the World Liberty Financial, cooking up this deal, the Trumps, the Witkoffs, all the people needed to make this deal come together. Trump and his team, they fire everybody who objected to us selling the top chips to the UAE, fired them all. Made the sale happen. UAE got its chips. Tanoon was successful. In return, Sheikh Tanoon takes $2 billion of his $1 trillion tranche and purchases USD1 crypto coin from the Trumps and the Witkoffs. And the service they use, because you got to have an exchange. You got to have a crypto exchange to exchange cash for crypto. So what do they use? They use Changpeng Zhao's Binance. Remember this story? Binance. Binance is a global cryptocurrency exchange marketplace. CZ, as he's more commonly called, Changpeng Zhao, CZ, he was the owner. He used to run it. But he ran into some trouble. Okay, he ran into some trouble. And in 2023, he was arrested. He was arrested right here in the States. He did his time 4 months in a low-security federal prison in Lompoc, California. Money laundering, among other things. We're going to get into exactly what he did. But it was basically money laundering and other violations. Okay? He was a federal, a felon, officially a felon, had to step down from the head of his company, Binance. Now, he still remained majority owner, still made the money, but had to step down. Had to divest himself completely from his U.S. interests. He couldn't conduct business in the U.S. anymore. Couldn't conduct business here. Couldn't even be the head of his own company because he was a felon. He wanted a pardon. So he gets with Trump and Tanoon and facilitates Tanoon's $2 billion through his crypto exchange in a deal that not only nets the Trump and Witkoffs $2 billion just like that, new investment into your coin just like that, but also the deal with Binance for facilitating the exchange nets the Trumps and the Witkoffs around $10 million per year. So, Tanoon got his chips. Witkoff and Trump got their money. What did CZ get? Changpeng Zhao, what did he get? Well, he just got pardoned. Total clemency. Just like that. Pardoned. He was already free, living in the UAE, cooking all of this up. He lives in the UAE. Already free, already did his time, but he didn't want to be a felon anymore. The grift has come full circle. Now, he admitted he had violated the law. Admitted it. I'm going to get into exactly what he did, okay? But now he's going to be able to take the head of his company once again, and he is going to invest in American companies once again. He's going to do business over here once again. All of that is going to continue. Mr. CZ got his pardon. He got his pardon. And Binance, they spoke on it. The company itself said, incredible news, and praised Mr. Trump for his leadership and for his commitment to make the U.S. crypto capital of the world. Mr. Zhao himself said he was deeply grateful for today's pardon and to President Trump for upholding America's commitment to fairness, innovation, and justice. Keep that in mind. Zhao is thanking him for his commitment to justice. He said, I will do everything I can to help make America the capital of crypto. Now, there were detractors of this transaction, people who didn't think quite so highly of Mr. Trump. One was Eswar Prasad, an economics professor at Cornell University. He said, this is yet another example of the administration's brazen flouting of the rule of law. There is little justification for this pardon and highlights how far this administration will go to promote the cryptocurrency industry. Elizabeth Warren said Congress should stop this kind of corruption. Here's the disgusting part about this. Mr. Zhao is touting Mr. President Trump's love for justice and upholding it. Well, here's what CZ admitted to doing. Here's what he admitted to doing. First, it's a list. First, terrorist financing. Transactions associated with terrorist groups including Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. That's number one. Facilitated transactions for them. Crypto transactions for weapons, whatever. Ransomware. One of the largest receiver of ransomware proceeds, transacting in millions of dollars of ransomware proceeds from attacks involving at least 24 different strains of ransomware. Do you want to know who's responsible for you having to go over to your grandmother's house and figure out why her computer's locked up because somebody's demanding she go buy a gift card for $500 and send it to somebody in India or China or wherever? It was Mr. CZ. It was him. It's this guy. Unreal. It gets worse. He never reported transactions with websites devoted to selling child sexual abuse material. He's financing terrorism, and he's helped facilitate child sexual abuse materials. And finally, sending and receiving virtual asset proceeds from large-scale hacks, account takeovers, and darknet markets dealing in illegal narcotics, counterfeit, and fraud-related goods and services, as well as other illegal contraband. These are the things he admitted to doing, and Trump just handed him a pardon because he wanted to do business in the States again. He wanted to be the head of his company again. He wasn't even out any cash. He was still majority stakeholder. All of his investments outside of the U.S. were secure. He just wanted to do business here. Makes a deal with the Trumps, paying him about $10 million a year through Binance. Binance facilitates, just the largest grift out of the Oval Office that could ever have been conceived. Sheikh Tanoon giving Trump $2 billion. Trump facilitating Sheikh Tanoon's NVIDIA chip sales. The grift has come full circle. It is absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. This administration is open for business. Mysterious donors, some of them disclosed, renovating the White House to put in a ballroom where he can feed his billionaire and millionaire buddies full plates while your family struggles to pay bills. He's going to move the troops to San Francisco like he had other places, except his billionaire buddies, hedge fund buddies in San Francisco asked him nicely, could you not? So he didn't. Yeah, we know about that story. And then on the back end, a mysterious donor is now willing to fund the government. What strings does that come with? Millions of dollars are coming from a mysterious donor to pay the military in the shutdown. A mysterious donor. We are now being subsidized by some dark force. Some unseen hand is paying our military. Well, if he's paying all of their paychecks, who are they really loyal to? The American people can't seem through their representatives to pay them. Congress can't pay them. The president won't pay them. So some mysterious funder is paying them? Could I see the fine print on this deal? Could I at least know who our new taskmaster is? Are you serious? Completely open for business. The grift is so real. He has completely reinvented the grift. He is by far the greatest grifter and con man that has ever lived. Without a doubt. Whole different tier. How many stories? How many stories do we have to do?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Now back to Brett Breaks Things, smashing spin, silencing the noise, and keeping it all facts, no fluff.
So I'm going to keep hitting this, and I'm just going to move on for now, but just for those of you who feel I have TDS, or may think that, Brett is spinning things. Maybe you don't think I'm a liar. Maybe you don't think I'm crazy. Maybe you think I'm spinning it or shading it. Please, please, please go behind me. The one article I really want you to check out is from the New York Times, okay? It's the 24th, 9/24. UAE got chips and Trump got crypto riches. If you really want to sink your teeth into, that's the one. That's the one. Please go right behind me and please let me know what I got wrong. Because if it's nothing, if I've got this story straight, this is the most egregious, disgusting grift out of the Oval Office that could have ever been conceived. And you can go ahead and make excuses for this guy, but you just got to know exactly who he is and what his aim in the White House has been all along. And by the way, this isn't the only crypto pardon. Oh, he's going to make crypto great again, by hook or by crook. And it's going to be by crook. It's going to be by crook. Yeah, Ross Ulbricht, the guy who runs Silk Road, we were all scratching our head about the Russ Ulbricht pardoning. This guy ran a black market of guns, drugs, illicit materials, and a crypto exchange black market. Trump pardoned him. Trump pardoned him. Don't forget, he's a giant crypto exchange professional, elite. He's going to make America crypto great again. So Ross Ulbricht's apparently a part of that plan in some way, shape, or form. Keep an eye on that. He also dropped all the lawsuits. We did a little digging, and I love this article, by the way. Thank you, Scotty, for getting this particular New York Times article on, it's a little bit of an update on this. He also dropped lawsuits against Coinbase. Coinbase, they came up as a unregistered securities exchange, a crypto black market. And the SEC filed multiple lawsuits against Coinbase in 2023 for being a crypto black market. Trump comes along and pardons them. It's going to make America crypto great again. And these criminals are all pardoned. Don't forget, he's pardoning George Santos. The hell's that about? I mean, just... Yeah, he's a weirdo. Birds of a weirdo feather flock together for sure. Like, just because he was a Republican at one point, he deserves a pardon? What are you doing there? What could George Santos have possibly offered Trump for that? Other people are asking for pardons from him. I heard there's rumblings that Diddy is. There's other people asking for pardons from this guy. What made George Santos so special? Yes, he was a Republican rep in the House. One of the biggest liars that have ever been elected by the people of America in its history. I would love to. Is it? That's Scotty saying maybe send a message to the base, right? Like loyalty first. If you're on our team, right? Just like the pardons for all those J6ers. Yeah. Everybody gets the message, right? Like if you're on our team, there may be something sweet in it for you at the end of the rainbow. When you go and you lie and you commit crimes for me, it may not turn out so bad after all. So give it a shot. Take a big swing like George Santos. Those lies were big. Maybe just because he's such a bigly liar and Trump just respects the hell out of his style. So Letitia James this morning pled guilty. Not guilty. Pled guilty. That would have been big news. We would have led the show with that. No, she pled not guilty this morning. She pled not guilty in a federal court in Virginia. Okay, one count of bank fraud, one count of making a false statement to a financial institution. She said these are baseless. Her indictment, she said, her indictment is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. Then she went out in the court's steps and said more things. We might get you some of that. You can check it out yourself. I'm sure it's making its round on social media already. But she spoke live. But of course, she's innocent. That's what she's claiming. All right? And this stems around her buying a second home in Virginia, her getting the mortgage rate for a second home rather than a rental property, which the government is saying that's what she used it as. And this all stems around an amendment agreement to the mortgage over allowing the property to be used as a rental, something they may have amended in the mortgage, and it stems around a $1,350 payment. One payment, one time. She says in 2020, my great niece and her kids moved in. They never paid me rent. The government is saying, one, you always planned to use that as a rental property and you secured a better mortgage rate for that. And two, you did lie. You lied willfully, knowingly to bank about $18,000. That's what they're saying. Now, Miss James's lawyers, I told you this, they are trying to get it thrown out on the same grounds that Comey's lawyers are trying to get it thrown out. And they filed almost identical motions over the Halligan appointment, right? As the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. You know the story. I've laid it out. You've heard it now. It's becoming a bigger and bigger topic. We did the story when it originally happened, and we're like, scratching our head. Siebert out. We get that part. A little bit too much integrity wouldn't bring the case. Siebert out as the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia wouldn't bring the case. Maggie McCleary in for a very small amount of time, appointed by Pam Bondi as an interim. Then Bondi fires McCleary immediately and installs Halligan, who had promised she'll bring the indictment. Letitia James' lawyers and Comey's lawyers are saying that's not how it works. If it worked that way, the interim appointment would be rendered meaningless, and you would be cutting out the judges from the process entirely, and Congress. You could just reappoint an interim over and over and over again within the 120 days. They're saying that's not how the law is interpreted, or should be, and even Scalise himself agreed with them. After Bondi fired McCleary, a judge should have appointed the next interim while the administration waits for the confirmation of their pick in the Senate. That's the basis of getting it thrown out on Lindsey Halligan. And the way they presented this motion allows for a possible ruling in a single case on that. Now, the judge in this case is Jamar K. Walker, a Biden appointee. So we've got an Biden appointee judge in Comey's case and a Biden appointed judge in Letitia James's case. And like I said, for those of you who may be on the right thinking, they're weaponized, I can't sit here and say definitively they're not radical left. I would assume they're not, but I can't say they're not. But what I can say is they are not radical right. And if you believe that Comey and Letitia James are both innocent, this is great news that at least it's not a weirdo radicalized right judge. For those of you who wish it was a weirdo radicalized right judge, I'm sorry. And I can't offer you any evidence that they're not radicalized to the left. But that's not the only thing that Letitia James' lawyers asked for. No. And this is one of the reasons Miss Halligan's going to get fired. Because Miss Halligan couldn't stop texting Anna Bauer. What was the name of the magazine? The legal Lawfare. Thank you, Scotty. Out of Lawfare. Look at that. Quick, Scotty. Quick. Yeah. Halligan couldn't stop texting Miss Bauer. First, admonishing her for retweeting stories that were baseless and false and didn't have the facts right. Asking her why she wouldn't just come to Halligan herself if she wanted to report on it. But then arguing about evidence in the case. Big problem. Big no-no. So Letitia James's lawyers are saying, by the way, Judge, could you gag Miss Halligan? Because we don't want a repeat of what just happened with the Comey case. We don't want, or with this, what just happened with Anna Bauer with this case. Sorry about that. It was this case. We don't want what happened with Halligan and Bauer to ever happen again. We can't have her out here talking to reporters on the record about details of this case. Could you gag her, please? So the judge will have to decide on that as well. And the lawyers had a few things to say about that. They basically said they want to prevent any further disclosures by the government attorneys and agents of investigative and case materials and statements to the media and the public. So, I mean, look, I don't know if Halligan would ever make that mistake again. I feel like the lawyers may be just trying to shame her a little bit, delegitimize her, certainly, at least in the eyes of the judge, a little bit, depending on how up he is on the writing of Anna Bauer, but might be a little bit petty, but look, they figure it's necessary. She already did it once. We may want to make sure the judge prevents her from doing it again. So, so James is speaking. Yep. Oh, you're going to play for me. Yeah. Here's Letitia after she pled not guilty.
I have this belief in the justice system, in the rule of law, and I have a belief in America and all of its individuals who have stood with me, not only in New York, but all across this nation. I've heard from just about every jurisdiction in this nation who have said, stand up and be tall. And never, ever cow down or back down or break or bend. So there's no fear today. No fear. No fear. No fear. No fear. Because I believe that justice will rain down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I have this belief.
If this whole political career doesn't work out for her, I don't know what her denomination is, but she definitely has a future preaching if she so chooses it. I mean, good Lord. She makes you feel it. She makes you feel it. And it's so easy for her to be out there and just so resolute, right? And defiant, because she knows how fraudulent the charges are. She knows how weak the case is. She knows how weak it is. Eric Siebert knew how weak it was. Apparently, Maggie McCleary knew how weak it was. Because even though she was demoted out of the U.S. Attorney General, McCleary was still a top prosecutor in the Eastern District. She wouldn't take the case. Another top prosecutor and her top aide, they wouldn't take the case. Fired. So yeah, Miss James is out here very resolute. Very resolute. In direct defiance of these garbage charges.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. Brett Breaks Things. Fighting for America, one mic drop at a time.
So, just because I like to keep it nice and clear and accessible, and I know a lot of you know, but I just wanted to open this segment as we talk about this case just a little bit more, and we move on. First, in 2018, Letitia James becomes AG. She says in the speech, "We here in New York, and I in particular, we're not scared of you." She promised to shine a bright light into every dark corner of Trump's real estate dealings, every dealing, demanding truthfulness at every turn. In 2019, she opened the investigation. In 2022, she filed the lawsuit saying that he criminally elevated the worth of his assets, right? Trump said at the time, another witch hunt by a racist Attorney General Letitia James. She's a fraud who campaigned on a Get Trump platform. I told you I love that platform. If that becomes somebody's actual platform, like verbatim, Get Trump platform, I'm down. There's my TDS. I'm down. In 2024, the lawsuit came to fruition, and Trump was ordered to pay $500 million in damages, and a judge found him civilly liable for inflating his assets, right? Trump becomes president, April 2025. Bill Polk gives a letter of referral to the DOJ for criminal charges into Letitia James. In August of 2025, the investigation from the DOJ was opened. Later in August, just later in that month, by the way, a little radicalized court threw out his $500 damages, and that's still being appealed. And then on October 9th, 2025, James was indicted. Just so we're clear why this is happening. And don't forget, it's also happening because Letitia James and 40 or so other U.S. attorneys across this country have been battling his executive orders step by step by step. Some lawsuits filed by herself. Some lawsuits were filed jointly with these other U.S. attorneys led by Letitia James. She's had a hand in all of it. She has been the safeguard that we were hoping would exist. She is at the front lines of this fight. She is the antibodies. It's her. And that's why this is happening. Some people see it clearly. Barbara McQuaid, who's a law professor at University of Michigan and a former U.S. attorney, said that prosecutors have traditionally been trained to treat the subjects of investigations and defendants with respect, to protect the bedrock American principle that citizens are innocent until proven guilty. When you have a president saying they're guilty as hell before they are charged, it seems like the process is working in reverse. It seems that humiliation is the goal, instead of humiliation being a collateral consequence of a conviction. It's the tail wagging the dog. And what she says there, it speaks directly to what's happening here with these indictments, with these investigations, and these referrals from Bill Polk. And Ed Martin told us that the humiliation was the point. He told us. Our weaponization czar told us what the point was. Do you remember? In the spring of this year, he said that regardless of whether charges could be brought, bad actors would be exposed. We will name them. And in a culture that respects shame, they should be people that are ashamed. He talks about the damage to their reputation, the millions spent defending themselves, and the permanent damage done to their careers. That's the point. This law professor and former U.S. attorney, she nailed it. Bullseye. It's the humiliation. Ed Martin knows. He said it. Doesn't matter whether we get an indictment. We know the evidence is garbage. That's not the point. He told us the evidence is garbage. We don't care. We don't care. We're going to drag Letitia James through the mud. We're going to drag her through this process. We're going to make her defend herself. Well, the garbage evidence is starting to mount. The stink, it's getting high, and it's starting to reach Todd Blanche and AG Pam Bondi. Because this case, it may be weaker than we had originally perceived it as. It may be weaker than even James and her lawyer are alluding to. So weak that several prosecutors within New York have told this administration, have told Todd Blanche and AG Pam Bondi, this is not a good case. This case may not hold up. This is weak evidence. Weak evidence. So, the whole case is really based around this Virginia house and her great niece living in it. Now, she had claimed this in terms of the mortgage rate she gets as a secondary home, which is a better rate than you would get for an investment property. Okay? And the prosecutors in this case are saying she said it was a second home and she used it as a rental property. And the evidence they have to this is $1,350, which was paid to her in rent from her niece. Now, her niece testified under oath that she moved into that house in 2020 and didn't pay rent. And she even testified that Letitia would send her money to help pay for utilities and groceries and other things. Well, as the prosecutors involved in this case dug into this, they realized that that $1,350 payment was a payback from the niece to Letitia for utilities that she had covered for them. You see, the niece wasn't just trying to, take advantage. She had borrowed money from Letitia for expenses, and she tried to pay her back. That is why there is only one record of a payment, just one. She was only able to pay her back one time for $1,350. The prosecutor saying, nope, she rented the property out to an unknown person with a three-member family. They won't say that they're saying that she rented the house to her great niece and her kids, because that betrays the truth of the matter. They have to make it an unknown three-person family in the indictment. No, it's this niece, and she didn't pay rent. She paid back utilities one time. Prosecutors themselves are saying that's one of the big holes here. The other one, the prosecutors, the government is trying to claim that with the better mortgage rate, that she was going to net $18,000, possibly $20,000, maybe $30,000, depending on the housing market and other factors, through this better mortgage, right? If she had been paying the proper mortgage rate, it would have cost her more. Well, they're saying even if she had done that fraudulently, which she didn't, but even if she had, when they did the math, when they actually did the investigating, the things that, McCleary and these other prosecutors saw, what they saw is that the amount that the government is claiming that she would have made is way more than she would have actually made. At most, she would have made $10,000. When they bring mortgage fraud claims against people, we're talking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in fraud. Those are the only cases that usually get this far. This is so clearly weaponized and a waste of everybody's time. And the prosecutors know it. The prosecutors know it. They all know it. They all know it. It's pathetic. And the prosecutors know it. Siebert knew how weak these cases were. McCleary knew how weak these cases were. Other prosecutors knew how weak these cases were. And now Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi, they both know how weak they are because their own people are telling them. And speaking of weak cases, Kelly Hayes over in Maryland, you're next. You're the next to get fired. Kelly Hayes has told Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche, we don't have a case against Adam Schiff. I'm sorry, we don't have it. They've met a few times now. Kelly, your job, just start packing your stuff up. Start looking for greener pastures. Go find out what Eric Siebert's been doing with his time. Because you're next. And you might as well start talking to Halligan. The three of you will have a lot to talk about in just a short amount of time, I promise you, because Kelly, you either come up with this indictment right now or you will be fired. And Pam will install an interim AG that will get the job done. She'll hire a hitman. You don't have the stomach for this. We'll get somebody who does. Say goodbye to your career. Kelly, you're next. She's been telling Blanche specifically, we don't have the case. We absolutely cannot seek an indictment right now. What did Blanche tell her? Go back to work. Get more evidence. Keep investigating. You better come back with something. The White House, they said, oh, go talk to the DOJ about it. The DOJ said, we're not responding to comment on, we're not going to comment on this. No, they have nothing to say about this. Kelly's job is done. It's done. She's going to get fired. You don't want to bring this case? You're going to get fired. So that looks good for Schiff. I mean, this whole weaponization, Ed Martin told you it's not the point, and it's looking to be true. It can't possibly, the veracity of their evidence or the legitimacy of these charges, they can't possibly be the point because all of them suck. Every one of them's falling apart. Every one of them's falling apart. Now, these got me thinking, and we're going to continue with this weaponization theme a little bit. Some of these got me thinking. It got me thinking about my rage about this. And I realized my rage is two parts. And one of them hinges on the case itself. The first part of my rage is every one of these cases have been brought vindictively. Our president is weaponizing the DOJ to go after his political rivals. This is the stuff of dictators. I am enraged at this. The other part of my rage is reserved for Comey and reserved for Letitia James and reserved for Lisa Cook, whose cases are trash, complete garbage. But should I be lending that portion of my rage to John Bolton? Should I be lending that portion of my rage to Brennan? Former DOJ, CIA leader Chief Brennan. Should my rage extend to him as well? We're going to get into that.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
So you guys just watched me tie my shoelaces together and fall flat on my face trying to say John Brennan and his former position, and then Scotty yelled at me in the break. I have been properly berated. John Brennan, former CIA director John Brennan. Should my rage extend to him? Should it extend to Bolton? Should it extend to him? The Bolton's case, the mishandling of classified information, writing this all down in his diary, having classified information in his diary, texting it out to his family members, then making copies of it and holding it at his house, then having those copies uncovered in a raid in his home, in his office. Should my rage extend to John Bolton? Should my rage extend to John Brennan? I mean, this isn't like some existential threat to justice and equality here and, due process. John Brennan, he did lean on the Steele dossier quite heavily. He carried out investigations in the CIA based on the Steele dossier. In some cases, he did kind of take Steele's word for it, right? Not a lot of independent investigation into the veracity of Steele's claims, more investigation into the things that it implied. Did John Brennan lean too much on the Steele dossier? Much of the Steele dossier was later proven to maybe not be quite so true. It's debatable. But most people agree that there are some parts of the Steele dossier that are flat out not true. And John Brennan did lean on it. So, John Brennan has now been referred from the Senate, from Congress, referred to the DOJ for charges. Okay? In a letter sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the Judicial Committee claimed that there is significant evidence that Brennan made numerous willfully and intentional false statements in his testimony about the CIA's involvement with the Steele dossier. Okay? The House Judiciary Committee is the one who referred this to the DOJ, specifically Jim Jordan. This is Jim Jordan's baby. He's the one going after Jack Smith, and now he's going after John Brennan. Okay? And what is Jordan saying about this? He's saying Brennan's assertion that the CIA was not involved at all with the Steele dossier cannot be reconciled with the facts. Brennan's testimony was a brazen attempt to knowingly and willfully testify falsely and fictitiously to material facts. So, the investigation into John Brennan is official. When I talked about it in the past, I said, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see what they come up with. We know they're looking into John Brennan. We know Trump wants his head on a pike. And now we know. That's kind of materialized. Now we know. Lying to Congress about his involvement with the Steele dossier as head of the CIA. Should my rage extend to him? I hope to be able to get into, really sink my teeth into some more reporting into these charges. I would assume that's what's going to come next. I mean, before we make John Brennan one of our heroes, let's make sure John Brennan didn't actually do it. Before I go out here and hail Bolton as some kind of sacrifice to the Trumpian philosophy of the DOJ, I'd like to know if Bolton did it. I'd like to know if Bolton did it. Did he do it? I'm pretty sure James and Cook and Comey didn't do it. I've done enough reading into the reporting involved around that investigation to know that's bullcrap. And my rage is extended to that situation in their cases. But I'm going to reserve it. I'm going to reserve it for Brennan and Bolton for just now. I'm going to reserve it. Jack Smith. Here's yet another example. I mean, they are really, they're really, making moves against their best interest. The DOJ is going ahead with these indictments when they know the cases are garbage, Halligan especially. And Congress, the way they're going after Jack Smith and John Brennan here, they're not being very careful about it. They're kind of bull in a china shopping it. And that was reflective in them wanting a closed door hearing with Jack Smith. They wanted to go behind closed doors and hear from Jack Smith, but not really. They wanted to attack him. It's the precursor to an indictment for Mr. Smith. And Jack Smith's out here saying, nope, that's not how this is going to play out. And he is requesting that Congress and the Justice Department allow him to testify publicly. He sent a letter to the House and Senate Judiciary Committees saying, I want to testify publicly. He wants to testify in open hearings because of the many mischaracterizations around his investigation that led to criminal charges against Donald Trump in 2023 for alleged mishandling classified records and actions related to the 2020 election results. So He is telling you what you know about this case already. They're going after Jack Smith because A, they said his investigation into Trump and Russian collusion around the 2020 election, it violated Trump's rights. It was weaponized and illegal. They're also saying that Jack Smith wiretapped 9 Republicans, wiretapped them, surveilled them, when really what he did was tolling. He wanted to know who made calls, to whom, for how long. That's it. No wiretapping, no record of the conversation, none of that. They want to get him. They want to get him. Smith's lawyers told the Republican committee leaders that he would need reassurance from the Justice Department that he will not be punished for his testimony, since some of the facts of his special office investigations are still under seal in court or protected by grand jury secrecy rules. See, that's the other case, right? Having Mar-a-Lago raided for those classified documents. Trump saying you violated my rights on that. And Jack Smith saying, oh, I'd love to get into the investigation that I conducted. I'd love to get into the hard evidence I found on Donald Trump in terms of concealing classified evidence or classified documents. I would love to. But you're not going to have me coming out here and talking about stuff that has been sealed, grand jury sealed evidence, stuff that has been sealed without assuring me that you're not going to hit me with some kind of charge. Because I'm going to talk about classified stuff in this. I'm going to talk about what really was found in the investigation into him hoarding classified documents. Oh, yeah. And he says, I need access. His lawyers are saying, you got to give him access to all the files that were created during this investigation. He needs to be prepared to tell you the truth. He put together these files during his investigation. He wants to review them. So give him access to all of his files. Well, at the same time, Chuck Grassley's out here, 92 years old, talking about Jack Smith certainly has a lot of answering to do, but first Congress needs to have all the facts at its disposal. Hearings should follow once the investigative foundation has been firmly set, which is why I'm actively working with the DOJ and FBI to collect all relevant records that Mr. Smith had years to become familiar with. It's a race to these records. And then he went on to say, I'll take these records and drop them down a deep well. No, he didn't. He didn't, but he's old. He may have slipped up and said what he actually means, but no, he didn't. He didn't. But that's what I mean. Look, I don't trust them at all. But they're saying, no, we need the records. We need to become familiar with what you already know. And Jack Smith saying, no, I need the records. I need copies of them because I need to familiarize myself with the truth of this investigation, the investigation I put together. You want to hear about it? I can't wait to tell you about it. But we're all going to hear about it together. And Jamie Raskin from that same House Judiciary Committee, he's all about it. Of course, Raskin's all about it. Of course he is. And he is urging his Republican colleagues to accept Jack Smith's offer. And he said, quote, I can think of no reason to deny the American people the opportunity to hear his testimony under oath and with questioning from members of both parties, and to let the Americans judge for themselves the integrity of Mr. Smith's investigations. There is no reason his appearance should be in the shadows of a back room and subject to the usual tiresome partisan tactics of leak and distort. Raskin sees this for what it is. Raskin saw that original request for exactly what it is, as did Jack Smith. You want us to get behind closed doors so you can spin the narrative on leaks. You want to leak out little details out of context and make Jack look as bad as possible. Raskin and Smith are out here saying, no. Let the American people hear the evidence and hear what Jack Smith has to say, and let them decide his integrity and the integrity of his investigations. I like that idea too. I like that idea very much. Very much. So, kind of putting a bow a little bit on some of this weaponization. We've talked about Jack Smith, Comey, James, Cook, Schiff. We've talked about Chris Wray. We've talked about John Brennan. We've talked about a lot of people and the investigations currently ongoing, even George Soros. We've talked about all of these open investigations. There was a couple that didn't really talk about. We've talked about all. I mean, he's pulled the security clearance of dozens of people. He's accused Obama of crimes, Biden of crimes, Hillary of crimes, Bill of crimes. He's accused everybody of crimes. Some he can't drag into court. He's pulled. I mean, the weaponization is unending, but there's a couple that I thought were interesting that may have repercussions going forward a little bit one way or another. I didn't talk about the Chris Christie. Oh yeah, Chris Christie, they have an open investigation into his Bridgegate scandal. Remember when he closed the George Washington Bridge to kind of retaliate to a political rival on the other side, right? Do you remember that? I know you do. There's an open investigation into that. They're going to try to get him on some kind of criminal charge on that. It's ongoing. And don't forget, Trump said, I know Chris better than anybody in the room. I always felt he was guilty. If they want to look at it, not for me. Not for me. I don't want to make that same mistake. Not for me. Don't do it for me. If they want to look at it, not for me. If they want to look at it, they can. You can ask Pam. I think we have better things to do. But I always thought he got away with murder. All right, Chris, you're next. You're next. Another one. Miles Taylor, the former chief of staff of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. You may remember that little anonymous op-ed called I Am Part of the Resistance inside the Trump administration. You remember that? Later on, Miles Taylor said that was me. It talked about people who were, concerted efforts to reel this guy in, concerted efforts to kibosh the insane Trumpian policies that were trying to come out of the Trump administration at the time, during the first administration. He was part of a group of people who were actively trying to stop Trump from achieving his goals. Well, Trump has an investigation into him. And he said he's being investigated after Trump signed an executive order in April directing the Secretary of Homeland Security to review Miles Taylor's activities as a government employee and submit a record with recommendations for appropriate remedial or preventative actions to be taken to protect America's interest. Lock him up. Those are the remedial actions they want taken. Investigate Miles Taylor and lock him up because he had the balls to come out and say that he's within my administration and he's working against my goals. You think that's cute? Retribution time, Miles Taylor. Retribution time. And then there's Chris Krebs. Didn't mention him. He's the former director of cybersecurity and infrastructure and the Infrastructure Security Agency. He's the one that wouldn't back up any of Trump's claims into voting machine hacking, right? Into the claims that all these voting machines were hacked and the 2020 election was hacked and illegitimate. Krebs wouldn't back any of it up. He actually had evidence to the contrary. Well, guess what, Krebs? You are being investigated. They're looking into where Krebs's conduct appears to have been contrary to suitability standards for federal employees or involved in the unauthorized dissemination of classified information. They're trying to get him for the classified information stuff like Bolton. We'll see what they have. I felt like mentioning those. Hadn't talked about those as much. Man, if they could get Christie on something, Christie could be a viable candidate in a Republican primary. Not if he's in jail.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett breaks things will be back Monday to break it all down.